They almost made the playoffs. Sadly, they didn't. But it was a remarkable turnaround for the Detroit Lions this year. Looking ahead to next season, Tom, the biggest question mark is what's going to happen at quarterback. Are we expecting Jared Goff to return? He was a fantastic, cheap, reliable option for you this year. Do you think he could potentially be that in Detroit again next year?
This is what it all comes down with Detroit Lions. They pick at 6 and 18, one of those courtesy of the LA Rams. So they can do what they like. I've gone back and forth on this. I don't think they can win big time games consistently with him. But the Lions' passing offense was 5th in DVOA this year. They were 14th in rushing. Jared Goff himself was 5th in QBR. He was the QB 14 in fantasy, QB 10 in total points scored, threw for over 4,000 yards, only had 7 interceptions on 29 touchdowns. That's a good stat line. There's a lot of quarterbacks around the league who would be very pleased with those stats. I think he's the kind of player that in fantasy, it'll be like a round 12 to 13 type player for me. I think that's completely fine if the Lions choose to bring him back. If they do decide to go for a quarterback, then the whole situation becomes a lot more precarious. At the minute, I feel like Amon-Ra St. Brown, his role is completely secure as long as Jared Goff's there. I mean, he's had 18 games with Jared Goff over the last 2 years where he's seen 9 or more targets. If a rookie comes in, are we going to see that kind of consistency?
Yeah, so touching on Amon-Ra St. Brown there, he's being held up as, a truly elite option now in Dynasty. We're talking about him as a top 10 wide receiver in ADP at the moment. Do you think he's shown enough through a couple of years? Do you think this offense has shown enough that he can return the investment you're having to put in him to go and acquire?
I think it's tricky because when you talk about that real top tier of wide receivers, you're thinking about guys like Jamar Chase, AJ Browns, those guys who just, they can give you those huge explosive days. Whereas Amon-Ra St. Brown, quite often, he's going like 100 yards on 9 catches and 1 touchdown, whereas those guys are going for like 140 and 2 touchdowns. And that's, the way the Lions want to play is they want to control the game through the running game a lot of the time, and they don't mind those short passes to Amon-Ra St. Brown, but they're not really giving us huge points returns in the passing game a lot. Maybe things open up more if Jameson Williams can start next season healthy and he can really develop as a player. Maybe that does change and may evolve into more of a pass-first offense at times, particularly if they change the way that they're using their running backs.
Yeah, so you touched on the running back there. DeAndre Swift, highly drafted in pretty much every format, wherever you are. Slightly disappointing year. Obviously struggled with injuries, struggled getting in and out of the lineup. Jamal Williams had a mind-blowing year in terms of red zone efficiency. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it other than maybe LeGarrette Blount up in New England. Jamal Williams is now a free agent. DeAndre Swift comes to the end of that rookie contract. Do you think that we can see DeAndre Swift start to return on some of that potential, or do you think they're going to bring somebody else in to compete with him?
Well, I think they'd be crazy to let Jamal Williams go. I mean, we might hate it for fantasy in terms of what it does to DeAndre Swift, but the team love him. And when you see interviews around him, like, this is a guy who really gets what it means to be a Dan Campbell player. And I think that really matters to the Lions. Like, moving on from him, it feels like the locker room would have a hole. But expecting Jamal Williams to repeat this in 2023 might be a bit too much. I mean, he's only had 30 touchdowns in his entire career, and 17 of them came this year. Like, that's over 50% of them. It's nuts what he's been able to do. And when we got it down to the 1 yard line or inside the 5, it was the best move in the NFL this year. But either way, I do think we're going to see a bigger role from DeAndre Swift this year. We saw it down the stretch. We saw him getting more snaps, more involved. The Lions seem to move away from that 3 running back committee and just get it down to 2, which is fine. We can cope with that for fantasy. I think Swift is the kind of player who could end up in the running back dead zone for best ball next year. If you've got him in Dynasty, you just hold him and hoping that value goes higher if Jamal Williams takes a while to re-sign for the Lions.